Thanks for tuning back in. Here are Asia's news headlines. Hong Kong's Mosquito flats sell for big bucks. China's stocks tumble as regulator warns of panic. Hong Kong is a city where vertical living goes to extremes, with only 48 square feet per person on the average. Living spaces are crammed, but many new luxury apartments here are getting even smaller, just as housing prices are soaring higher than that of skyscrapers. Reuters reporter Tara Joseph had this to say.
Yes, I am standing in a parking space, and that is to show you that an apartment around the same size here in Hong Kong is likely to cost you about $500,000, and that's not necessarily in a fancy neighborhood.
They're being called Mosquito flats, and for that amount of money, in this new development, at least you get a marbled bathroom, even though you shouldn't expect to fit that many people in it. And this bedroom allows you just enough room to put in a bed. Flats in this asparagus-shaped building are going for as much as $500,000, and it's particularly sold out. Hong Kong has long attempted to provide adequate housing for all income levels. The city's become infamous for the so-called cage apartments, the only space some wage workers and the jobless can afford. House prices have soared more than 150% as a wave of mainland Chinese buyers flood the city. It's now rated by one independent study as the least affordable property market in the world. Hong Kong Island was called a barren rock when British gunboats landed here centuries ago. Now that there's nowhere else to go on that rock, you might as well forget about a dining room. Chinese stock markets plunged again on Wednesday as investors shrugged off a sequence of support measures by Chinese regulators, including the central bank's first public statement in support of the market since it cut interest rates in the late June. The CSI 300 index declined more than 7% at the open and was down 4.8% at 3,739.18 points. The Shanghai Composite Index fell 8% and was down 4.7% at 3,551.13 points by mid-morning. Both indices have declined some 30% from mid-June peaks. At current average rates of decline, both indices could possibly give up all their yearly gains as soon as next week. China stock futures pointed to further losses. The CSI 300 stock index futures for July dropped 6.2% to 3,611. 128.2 points below the current value of the underlying index. Losses on the mainland also weighed heavily on Hong Kong shares, with the Hang Seng Index down 3.3% and shares of Chinese companies listed in the city dropping 4.2%. The People's Bank of China said on Wednesday before stock markets opened that it would back market stability by providing liquidity through borrowing, bond issuance, and collateral-supported financing and relending, while guarding against systematic financial risk. The statement came shortly following announcements by other regulators, including one by China's Securities Regulatory Commission, CSRC. Spokesperson Deng Ji alerting of panic in the market and increasing irrational selling of stocks. A Vietnam border issues committee headed by the deputy foreign minister and the minister in charge of the border issue, Ho Xuan Sun, started a three-day meeting with Cambodian counterparts on Tuesday in Phnom Penh. Talks are predicted to concentrate on the remaining border demarcation and the clashes that happened recently at the border. A group of about 300 Cambodians, led by some opposition party lawmakers, went to the border on June 28th. And it was reported they were beaten by a group of Vietnamese with sticks, causing injuries to about 10 people on both sides. Delegations from both ends stated on Tuesday that the meeting was very important in finding a solution on the border issues. They will be investigating the reports on both sides regarding the recent clashes. The meeting is expected to end on Thursday with a joint news conference to provide the conclusions from the meeting. Cambodia shares a 1,137 kilometers long border with Vietnam in the east and southeast. China's claim to the disputed South China Sea will come under international legal scrutiny for the first time this week after Philippines filed the case at a UN tribunal. Manila's international legal team went to the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague to argue that the five-judge panel has jurisdiction to hear the case, Philippine Foreign Ministry officials told Reuters. That is because of worries China raised in a public position paper in December about the tribunal's jurisdiction over the matter, based on court statements. A little notice decision by the tribunal's panel in April recognized China's objection and revealed that a hearing on jurisdiction from July 7th through the 13th would be held first. Manila filed a case in 2013 attempting to seek a ruling on its right to exploit the South China Sea waters in its 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone EEZ, as granted under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. China claims most of the South China Sea, through which $5 trillion in shipborne trade passes annually. The Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Taiwan, and Brunei also have overlapping claims. The case is being closely watched by Asian governments and Washington, given the rise in tensions in the South China Sea, especially in the Spratly Archipelago, where China is building 7 artificial islands that will allow its navy to exert power deep into the maritime heart of Southeast Asia. Washington has promised to keep up air and sea patrols in the South China Sea, amid worries among security experts that China might impose air and sea restrictions in the Spratlys once it completes work on its 7 artificial islands. China has stated it had every right to set up an air defense identification zone in the South China Sea, but the current conditions did not warrant one. The territorial dispute is observed by many as one of Asia's most dangerous hotspots, posing threats that it could result in a conflict as countries post their claims. With dioramas of heroic communist soldiers and graphic images of massacres, China formally launched its commemorations for the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II on Tuesday with the revealing of a new exhibition. Sino-Japan relations have long been affected by what China observes as Japan's failure to repent for its occupation of parts of the country prior and during World War II. And China rarely misses the opportunity to make that message known. The new exhibition, called Great Victory: Historical Contribution, is located at a war museum beside the Marco Polo Bridge, the site of a clash in Beijing's outlying suburbs 78 years ago that triggered an all-out Sino-Japanese war. North Koreans commemorated the 21st anniversary of its founder Kim Il-sung's death. In videos provided by North Korea's state news agency KCNA, which cannot be independently verified by Reuters, North Korean people laid flowers in front of statues of Kim Il-sung and its late leader Kim Jong-il at Mansu Hill in Pyongyang as a sign of their respect. A flower ornament in the name of the isolated state's current leader, Kim Jong-un, was also showcased. Kim Il-sung led his country from its founding in 1948 through the 1950-53 Korean War until his passing in 1994. He was succeeded by his son, Kim Jong-il, who later died in December of 2011. We'll be right back after this commercial break.